81-year-old Sonny Morales is a third-generation Mason. He learned bricklaying from his father, and he learned this from his grandfather.
He says 3 things in life for you to live a long time. He says, eat 3 meals a day, he says, get your 8 hours of sleep, and work your butt up, because you were born on the poor side, and you work and you live a long time.
His son Daniel represents the 4th generation. He's the project manager for restoration efforts at the mission. The Morales family of Masons have worked to restore this 200-year-old church on and off for decades. Daniel took the reins when his father, Sonny, stepped down in 2000.
My father is still working with us part-time. You know, he does a few hours a day. He's still at it. He's always worked, you know, all his life. We get to work on something that's special to a lot of people. You know, people come from all over the world here and visit this place. And, you know, you see their expressions of what they see out here in the desert. You know, this monument that stands out.
It's special enough that government officials featured an artist's rendition of San Xavier at the center of the Pima County seal, as did the city of Tucson.
We're actually putting in control joints now into the dome.
Morales led restoration work on the West Tower, which began in January of 2003. That work continued for 6 years at a cost of nearly $3 million. The scaffolding came down in December of 2008, just in time for Christmas concerts. It was also just in time for an economic downturn.
And this has taken us a long time, and people say, well, why is it taking so long? You know, maybe it's time you should find a new architect.
Bob Vent has been the preservation architect at San Xavier del Bac for the past 25 years. He's worked with Adobe Structures in particular for nearly 30 years.
One thing we've learned is that you need to use ancient materials for ancient buildings. You can't use modern materials. They end up doing more harm than good.
While done with good intentions, efforts during the 1950s and 60s involved, among other things, the use of concrete and rubberized roofing paint, which failed.
With the cement, moisture gets inside and then it has no way to escape.
What we learned in the subsequent decades was that underneath this hard coat of cement and sand plaster that was applied, the old soft brick was being eaten up.
Vent's research has identified materials and methods of construction that are compatible with the mission and appropriate for its restoration.
We're returning to the traditional plaster of lime and sand and then lime washing it as a finish. The purpose of the lime and sand plaster is to provide a skin to protect the brick, but a breathing skin, one that's not going to trap moisture, and one that's not incompatible in terms of its hardness, its strength, its density. And that's where, again, we're maintaining that brilliant white appearance, which I think is part of why it's so impressive against the blue sky. It makes the sky look bluer.
The sand portion of the mixture comes from the Tohono O'odham Reservation, and there's one unusual ingredient with a local origin.
We're also adding in this folkloric ingredient, which is the nopal cactus mucilage, the famous cactus juice. And essentially it is a fluidifier. It makes the mortar handle better when the masons are putting on the wall. I believe what it does is it slows the drying time of the lime plaster. If it dries too quickly, it doesn't fully cure.
The restoration work is done by hand. It takes time and patience.
The head of our masonry crew, Danny Morales, I've been with him when he'll open up a piece of wall with a hammer and chisel, and just a spurt of red dust will come out because the brick is disintegrated.
In this kind of work, you don't know what you're going to find, you know, until you open it up. And once you open it up, you know, sometimes you find something that's more damaged than you thought. You have to be very careful, because if you make the wrong move, you may take a few steps back.
It's been nearly 7 years since work finished on the West Tower. Now they plan to restore the East Tower. From afar, you can see the difference in the color between the two. Inside the East Tower, you can see its decline.
It's just a cornice that holds the ledge. It's in between the arch. It's in bad shape. I mean, it's got the concrete all over the floor. And this is paint right there. They had put some paint on it, or Tough Tex, I believe it was at the time.
The pace of the work is limited by the amount of money available. For the past 2 decades, that funding has come from donations to Patronato San Xavier, a non-sectarian nonprofit organization founded by Southern Arizona community leaders. Their sole mission: to promote the restoration and preservation of Mission San Xavier del Bac.
The Patronato has on hand about $800,000, which would get us through about a year and a half of working with our crew. We have estimated it's a $3 million project, and we expect it to take 5 years.
Funds for the restoration don't commingle with the coffers of the Catholic parish at San Xavier. The Patronato and the church are separate entities. It is, however, an active church where Mass is held each day and worshipers come to practice their faith.
Others come curious and just, whether Catholic or not, find a quiet place to sit and pray and think in their own way.
Father Stephen Barnofsky is a Franciscan friar and the pastor at San Xavier. He embraces the confluence of people and cultures that make their way here.
One day there were some Buddhist monks in there, and they were just sitting and absorbing, I guess, and people from other faith traditions who just find it to be a peaceful place. You know, it's wonderful to have a historic building, but to still have that place functioning as a place for spiritual fulfillment is, to me, really important.
Morales and his crew have begun their work inside the East Tower. When that work is complete, scaffolding will go up on the exterior, and the restoration will continue. Mission San Xavier del Bac is a recognized national landmark and the oldest building of European origin in the state of Arizona.
The mission, I think, also is significant not only because of its age, but because it was built on a frontier. This was at the edge of the known world. For the Spanish, it was the edge of their empire. I also think it's a symbol of community. It's the center of this village of Bac, San Xavier del Bac. Bac is the Native American place name. But because it stands in isolation, you can still experience it. And I really feel that coming down to our mission, San Xavier del Bac, is traveling back in time. It's like you can walk into the 18th century.
For architect Bob Vent, this iconic structure is nothing short of an inspiration.
Architecturally, it's spectacular. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful buildings anywhere, I think, on the face of the earth. And I mean, the proportions of it, the details of it, you know, it's got this beautiful verticality in the openings, the slenderness of the arches. So it really is I think, the ultimate work of architecture. And art. And let's not forget, architecture is art.
For Daniel Morales, the restoration has been a life's work. His son Vincent represents the 5th generation of Masons to practice their trade on the mission. Morales will have to hand over the reins someday.
Yes, I'll hand it down to my son Vincent currently, if he chooses to. If he chooses not to, well, maybe a grandchild or something.
Either way, he has faith in the mission's future.
Well, I'd like to see all of it get completed and then hopefully taken care of when I'm long gone.